I have been seeing many videos about the mental load carried by women, whether they are stay-at-home mothers or work outside the home. These videos often argue that women, mothers, and wives bear an unseen, unnoticed mental load that is not appreciated by their partners, and that men need to do more to reduce this load by handling some of the frequent small tasks that might go unnoticed. As a woman and a stay-at-home mother, I acknowledge that the mental load exists. It definitely does. However, I am a little confused because the general message of these videos is that women have this entire mental load while men have none, so men need to step up. That has not been my experience in my marriage. Except for times of injury, illness, or bad days, when in a committed relationship you support each other, we simply manage without competition or bitterness. I do not see why this should be a contentious issue. I know my husband carries a mental load, and I probably do not see half of it. Not all tasks are daily, but they accumulate until he is doing tasks every day. He has mental responsibilities at work, and there is always something to address with the cars, the property, the yard, or the house. Preventative maintenance, repairs, tool sharpening, replacing filters, cutting dangerously dangling tree limbs that I did not even notice, pest management. There are countless tasks that allow my day to run smoothly, probably because of him. Whatever needs to be done that day, he is always doing something beneficial to the household, often important structural, health, or safety tasks that I would likely not consider until something broke or fell apart if he were not here. I am told that this situation is rare, but I am not sure it is. So what do men say? Is it rare for a man to have a mental load? Or is it just usually unrecognized? What is your mental load like? Do you feel it is noticed or recognized in your relationship? Are you and your partner aware of and grateful for each other's share of the mental load? Or is it one-sided? Is this a common struggle in relationships? Or is it an empty social media trend? Story 1. If you already think like this, you are almost certainly fine and do not need to give yourself a hard time about it. Story 2. I am a 64-year-old retiree. I started worrying about my wife 4 years ago when she began showing signs of memory loss and mild confusion. This was completely unlike her. She has always been highly organized and in control, so I became alarmed after a few episodes. We went through the entire diagnostic process, and now, for years later, she has completely lost her speech, is incontinent, immobile, and has moved into a long-term care facility with dementia and aphasia. The past 4 years have been intense. Throughout our relationship of over 40 years, I have been her protector and caregiver, always attentive to her needs, which I truly enjoyed. It was my purpose. I still feel it is my purpose, but there is nothing more I can do now. I am home alone, and every night I wonder if she is cold or warm, lonely, feeling sick, or okay. I wonder what her mornings are like or what might be going through her mind. I do visit her every day, sometimes twice a day, but I can no longer protect her. Honestly, I am beginning to lose interest in life. That is where I am now. Story 3. I am the primary income earner. My wife could not even pay the mortgage with 100% of her take-home pay. Despite being double income, no kids, working and dating, she acts as if she is constantly busy or never has enough time to do what she wants. I genuinely believe if my wife could live a day in my shoes, she would have a complete and total nervous breakdown. To add, she has a cushy work-from-home gig in human resources doing payroll, not a high-stress position at all. I work 50 to 70 hours a week with a 45-minute one-way commute each day. I handle most household tasks except sweeping and grocery shopping. To say my wife has an easy life would be an understatement. Story 4. It goes unrecognized because people just don't care about us. My load is that I'm a full-time middle school teacher. I used to do television production, social media management, website development, large-format print shop work, and yearbook. I have my own creative agency and manage the brands for about 25 local companies. We also do website design and real estate photography. I have accidentally been brought on as the marketing director for a brokerage as well. My wife works a lot, so it's left to me to take care of the house, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and our middle schooler. My partner is aware now, but she wasn't aware until we had a conversation about what she's going through. The next day, she said she appreciates everything I do. That made me cry. I'm not one to make a big deal about what I do. It just needs to get done. Story 5. This is a sample of my own mental load, just as an example. For context, I'm in my 30s and married with a dog and no children. Have I taken the trash, recycling, and compost out to the bins? When do I need to put the bins out to the curb? When do I need to bring the bins back inside? Have we planned the menu for the week? Does the menu account for our dietary restrictions and goals? Are we getting enough leafy greens? Do we have too many carbohydrates? Have we made a shopping list based on the menu plan? What stores do we need to go to? When are we going shopping? Have I done the dishes today? If the dishes are already clean in the dishwasher, when will I unload them? Do I know the dinner plan and how long it will take? Am I cleaning as I go? Have I taken care of cutting the grass, watering the plants, and weeding the yard? Is now a good time to do that? Or will there be a better time this week? Has my dog been on a walk today? How long was the walk? Did she poop enough times? Are there enough treats and poop bags ready for the walk? What house cleaning needs to be done this week? What is the priority? What tasks need to be done before others? What do our schedules look like? And what days should we clean each area as a result? Did the cleaning get done? If not, how can I find more time to complete the cleaning that was left undone? Have I checked in on how my wife is doing? More than just, how was your day? Have we had a deep emotional conversation today? Have we connected in a way that isn't just going on a walk, cooking dinner, or watching television? Is there a project that my wife needs help with that she's forgetting or afraid to tell me? Is there anything she is afraid to tell me but wants to talk about? Is there anything she needs to vent or complain about? Am I actively listening? Am I giving her validating and helpful responses? Are my responses showing an appropriate amount of interest? Am I being vulnerable and open enough about how I'm feeling, even if it is uncomfortable? What are we doing for date night this week? What restaurant are we going to? Is there an activity? Is the date new and exciting? Is it something she would like? Is the date going to connect us emotionally? Have I worked out enough today? Have I walked at least 4 miles? If not, how will I make it up tomorrow? Is there an opportunity for me to walk more? What projects do I need to do around the house? When will we have time and money to do them? What priority do they have? How does my wife feel about each project? Do we have enough money? Are we meeting our savings and investment goals? If we are low on money, what can I do to save money? How can I menu plan or project plan based on our finances? Have I initiated sex this week? How many times? Have we had both kinky sex and emotionally fulfilling sex? How does my wife feel about our sex life? This is just a small sample. I am so exhausted. Story 6. I think you'll hear about it less from couples where the load is distributed appropriately, so what you hear on social media is just the loudest perspective. I work full-time and do most of the kids' activities, getting them to and from school and extracurriculars, making their meals and spending productive time with them. I handle home maintenance, but our cleaning and yard work are outsourced. My wife also works full-time and manages laundry, books trips and outings with friends, and more. Her work often requires her to travel, and my team is very tolerant of my work-from-home setup, so it makes sense for me to handle the day-to-day tasks. Honestly, the tasks I do don't take up much mental space because my kids are good eaters and will eat what I prepare. I have a lot of work flexibility, so I'm the default chauffeur, and if my wife takes over, it's a bonus for me. My mental load is mainly focused on whether I'm doing enough. Should they start music classes? Am I reading to them enough? Teaching them math, science, and so on. So it's mostly just guilt and stress. Story 7. Being the sole financial provider for my wife and 3 children, I know that a misstep means ruin not just for me but for all of them. My wife wonders how I can consistently wake up at 4 a.m. every day. But if I do not, it is not just my problem. Story 8. My mother was a stay-at-home mother, and when I think about my childhood, her routine was remarkably stable from day to day. Make breakfast, get the children to school with lunches, clean up the dishes, do laundry, vacuum, shop, the children come home with school items, encourage them through homework, wash lunch items, make supper, dad gets home, everybody eats, clean dishes after supper, children to bed. Thinking about it now, it seems like a grind that never changed. My father was responsible for basically everything outside the house, like mowing the lawn, trimming trees, cleaning gutters, sealing pipes that went through the roof from the plumbing, rotating tires, changing oil, and otherwise making sure the cars worked. One positive aspect was that mowing on Saturday was different from his work during the week. If a faucet was dripping and he had to replace the washer, which is something different from his job or mowing, that added variety. However, the number of tasks he had was much higher, even though each occurred less frequently. For her, it was a grind that never changed, which seems mentally exhausting. For him, at any moment something might go wrong, and it would be his responsibility. He maybe did not carry the same mental load all the time, but it was harder to relax knowing that he was responsible for everything that might break. Also, if she was having a really hard day and could not function, she might skip shopping and we would have leftovers for supper. If he was having a really hard day and could not function, he could be out of a job, and the family that depended on him could be out of a house. His daily pressure was huge. Everyone depended on him showing up for work every day. Story 9. I am currently stressing about bills, health, taxes, and kids. My wife's health and a bunch of other things worry me as well. No one knows because there is no one I trust to help me deal with it. Especially my wife, because her worrying would cause me further stress. 3 months ago, I was having sleepless nights because of it, and no one noticed at all. I smile on the outside and die inside. I really worry about what would happen if I didn't have kids. Sometimes they are the anchor that keeps me out of the abyss. Story 10. Yard. Anything related to car or house, such as inspections, registration, oil changes, exterminator services, and repairs. Bills. I handle pediatrician and veterinarian appointments. There are many supplies that I manage and track in our inventory. Finance. Do we have enough money? What payments are due? And are we saving enough? Security. Honestly, this is what irritated me when my wife and I discussed mental load. I couldn't get her to recognize that because I earn 80% of our income, there is a significant amount of stress related to my job, our security, and potential challenges. Additionally, every man has a concern or responsibility that weighs on him. Story 11. I'm a self-employed roofer, managing my business and workload as best I can, aiming for financial stability. My significant other has bipolar disorder, so when at home, I look for signs of her mood. I am always aware of her energy or lack thereof, the words she uses, what triggers to avoid, and how to help her adjust depending on her state. When she is up, I have a lot of work to catch up on. When she is down, it is the same. I need to take time off work for medical appointments. I must be able to pay all expenses at short notice in case of a buying spree. If I fail, disaster could be just around the corner. I get a bit touchy when I hear people talk about women's mental load. I know it is systemic and my life is not the norm, but do not tell me you are tired because of cleaning and shopping when I have to go to work worrying if my significant other will have the will to stay alive until I get back. Story 12. Too much. My wife is a part-time nurse who has had delusions of grandeur since 2020. I carry almost all the financial and household load. I work 60 hours a week, while she is glued to her smartphone and complains about how tired she is and what a hero she is. Story 13. When I was a stay-at-home worker, the mental load I carried was mostly about my work. Specifically, it was about ensuring my family was taken care of, maximizing job security, and trying to offset inflation with raises. I also made plans for how my family would be supported if I had a stroke, was hit by a car, or if any number of other things went wrong. I planned for retirement, made sure our health benefits were appropriate, tracked the health savings account, and prepared for larger expenses I knew were coming. It involved a lot of logistical work. I put myself through university while working full-time. I earned my associate's, bachelor's, and master's degrees while she was a stay-at-home mother. All of these were to improve job security and expand career opportunities. These efforts benefited the whole family. I didn't share this mental load with my ex because she had no control over it. She had her own concerns, and sharing would have stressed her out. Over time, though, I think she lost an understanding of what it is like to be in the workforce. Now that we are no longer together, she occasionally tells me how hard it is to find jobs and how difficult it is to be a student. Every relationship is unique, so I won't generalize, but I have realized that I understood my ex's mental load better than she understood mine. I cooked, cleaned, and was a dad to my kids, so my life has not changed much in terms of mental load. However, I will say that the mental load specifically related to children for a stay-at-home mother is intense. It's not so much that there is a lot to track, but that children have a near constant stream of needs. If you are a stay-at-home mother, it is easy and convenient to take on that responsibility until you lose yourself in the mommy role. But doing that will keep you at your wits' end forever. Story 14. Overloaded. I do 99%, I feel. Married. Child-free. I work twice the hours. I pay for 100% of everything. I plan everything. Domestic labor is 80%. Sexual labor is 100% me, and they have zero interest or libido, so we have not touched in 2 years. They will not make an effort at all, not even to help me out, even though they know how much I am suffering. Long-term planning all me. Savings all me. Pensions all me. To buy a home, yes, all me. Carry it all. Everything. Constantly. Every day. They are immune to my financial advice. They do not look for full-time work. They seem okay with me to kill myself to keep us going, it seems. If I lost my job, they would not be able to pick up the slack. It would still be all me. My work is super stressful. I have absorbed management of a new sector in my first role after only 7 months. Everyone needs something from me, and I do not even know what I am doing. Nobody trained me, so I trained myself and tried to train others, but it is spiraling out of control, and I will get the blame for things that were not my fault. My work is a mess. My relationship is a mess. My body is a mess. My brain is a mess. My finances are a mess. My sanity is a mess. All I want to do is get blackout drunk because the abyssal oblivion is the only time I can stop thinking. I do not think I can keep this up. I do not know what to do. I have not been this unhappy in years. I feel like a caged animal, a neutered beast. Like every need I have is suppressed. Every feeling moot. Like I have to bargain for my feelings to matter. Everything I want is conditional on me providing something first. Story 15. You are awesome, you know that? People often dismiss a lot of men's mental load, especially regarding work. In most families, men are the primary breadwinners, and especially when children arrive, often the only breadwinner. As a result, the entire financial well-being of the family rests on the father's shoulders. Many fathers go through the workday terrified of losing their jobs and subsequently losing their families. Financial difficulties are the #1 reason for divorce. Story 16. Men do not talk about it as often as women do. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death among young men. Draw your own conclusions. Story 17. Everyone has a mental load. The same women complaining about theirs are the ones not recognizing it in their partners. My wife and I share chores and obligations. We both have careers and we work as a team. Story 18. My mental load is her mental load in addition to mine at a minimum because God knows if she is dealing with it, I am too. Story 19. Every functioning adult, regardless of gender or relationship status, carries a mental workload. Story 20. We men are told to repress our feelings and act as if there are no problems. We are supposedly the rock of stability, the anchor holding everything together. That is what women supposedly love about men. We are the silent rock, as if it comes naturally to be calm, cool, and collected. There are many stories of men who eventually open up to their girlfriends or wives, only to have their inner emotional anxieties and worries used against them. Being worried or anxious makes you less than a man. It makes you a boy, an inferior being unworthy of love. I am told that is rare, but I am not sure it is. So what do men say? Is a man with a mental load rare, or does it usually go unrecognized? Option A, it goes unrecognized. Option B, if it is recognized, it is often held against us because showing we have a mental load makes us inferior, weak specimens unworthy of love. Story 21. You have a lucky husband for paying attention to the things he does in the background. Many people take this type of action for granted since it is considered the man's duty to maintain those background tasks. I am sure you already do, but if you simply tell him you notice and appreciate what he does, I am sure that would make all of the effort worthwhile. To answer your question, it depends on the situation. Men and women carry different mental loads depending on their specific lives. It seems that in the videos you are referencing, they are specifically talking about stay-at-home mothers. If you ask this question to fathers who work full-time, you would likely get a better answer. Story 22. My wife has said herself that she would not be able to handle anything without me, yet she does nothing to contribute. I do everything. I am just tired, and I want out. Story 23. A lot of it is just thinking about tasks nobody notices when done right, but if you do not do it properly, then it becomes a big problem. Many things are like this. Home maintenance falls on me, but I usually do not know what I am doing, so I have to think about it and research. Perfect example. The toilet was leaking, and the cistern was about to burst, which would be a massive problem, and we had very little money. I did not know anything about how to fix it or even the terminology to search for the information I needed. I had to watch videos from a plumber, but some parts have different names in Australia. I researched and searched, made a list of the parts one needed, went and bought them, came home, realized I did not have the right tool or enough plumber's tape, and made a second trip to the hardware store. I realized I did not know where the water mains were. I looked around with no luck, called my dad who had an idea where it was and shut it off. I started taking the toilet apart. I could not find yet another tool I needed but knew I had it. I realized the pipe was not flexible but some old solid pipe. I put it back together to rethink the problem. The leak was worse. I shut off the water at the wall. Now we had to bucket flush. Then I realized I had to replace the water shutoff valve because it was incompatible with the modern hose. It was a soldered connection. How do I replace this? Anyway, this was a 3-day process of opening the toilet, trying to fix it, then closing it up and thinking about it. The whole week it was weighing on my mind, plus the money problems. I could not afford a plumber, but if it broke, I could not afford the water damage, so I had to get it done. Long story short, I fixed it. Nobody seemed to notice or care. It is a brand new, bright white toilet cistern. The old one had gone yellow with age. Nobody noticed. Story 24. In a committed relationship, as the man, my mental load has always been that romantic and sexual activities only happen through my planning and execution. In her eyes, it just happens. But in my eyes, I have to make it happen. I have never had a partner do any of that work, and it is emotionally draining. Succeeding at having sex is the emotional reward, so it is worth it only if she agrees or consents most of the time. Once she crosses the line into rejecting me most of the time, the relationship starts its decline, and I now know I should cut my losses and leave sooner rather than later. Story 25. We all have mental burdens. We do not talk about them because discussing them does not resolve anything. It only means we spend time doing something that does not fix anything. Story 26. Mental load definitely exists for men. It is just that society conditions us not to talk about it. We are expected to be stoic and bear it in silence. Otherwise, many people would consider us whiny and weak. My first priority is providing for my family. That means constantly strategizing about my career, which includes managing various projects and people, along with personal improvements to ensure I stay relevant. In the current climate where employers are laying off employees frequently, I cannot take my job for granted. This is the #1 source of stress for me, the heaviest mental load. I view women online talking about mental load as if it is unique to them as a victimhood mentality. Everyone has a mental load. Do not talk as if you are unique. My favorite quote from my favorite person is, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always." Robin Williams. Story 27. The whole concept of mental load, according to feminists, is, if women do it, it is hard work they are forced to do by their male partners. If men do the exact same, it is considered the bare minimum of contributing to a relationship. Story 28. I am constantly exhausted from the mental load in my head. It never gets better because I do not have the ability to vent without creating another issue to deal with. I am almost always told my frustrations and emotions are not justified, so I just keep it all inside. Women, in general, are really good at ignoring what men do and focusing on what they do not do. This happens to me every day of my life. Story 29. In equitable relationships, it is not a significant conflict point. The issue arises when the relationship is not equitable. Story 30. I read something that stuck with me. In a household with kids where everyone is pulling their weight, both partners feel like they are doing 80% of the work because there is just so much. I have had luck offloading some of the mental load to calendars, reminders, and list applications. I used a Franklin planner to do the same before smartphones were common. There is still plenty to go around though. Story 31. I rarely felt recognized. It seemed she assumed I had full control of everything, including what my body did. She made me feel bad about it too. This is one example of how men's mental load is very heavy. Story 32. I own a trucking company. I have dozens of employees, customers, vendors, and other people to handle every day. Due to the poor freight market right now, I don't put my phone down from 6:30 a.m. until 7 to 8 p.m. I take at least 3 to 4 emergency calls per week after midnight for breakdowns and roadside service payments. Many people's checks depend on me, and I keep delivering like a professional. Then I go home and my wife, who works part-time from home, starts venting about her problems, difficult customers, her day, Pilates, spa gossip, and talking about her girlfriend's Instagram. It doesn't stop until we go to bed. Her mental load is insignificant compared to mine, but I would never transfer any of mine onto her. She can't help but transfer hers onto me. I learned how to handle it myself while she learned how to rely on others. It's too late to change that as adults. It's part of who we both are. It is what it is, but women tend to exaggerate every little thing they do or that happens. Story 33. Personally, I am overloaded and do not have the means to take a break, so I am permanently in this overloaded state. There are times I wish I could end it all, but I can see the faintest light at the end of the tunnel, so I soldier on. Story 34. Our mental loads are just different. They always have been. We each hold a mental load because we do not want the other to. But would it not be better if we all just shared the mental load? Because I did not. I am now co-parenting my boys. And trust me, I know my mental load is now much heavier. Story 35. I believe there are relationships where one person does not carry their weight. I also believe women are more vocal about it while men just work through it. No one cares when a man complains. Story 36. Your assessment of your husband is accurate for me and most adult men I know. I do not see it as a burden to complain about. I see it as a duty. I do these things because I can and they need to be done. They suit the way I think and my talents more than the way my wife thinks and her talents. I do not have to protect my family from roving bandits, but I spend every day holding back the world's attempts to degrade and tear down our quality of life. That is what masculinity means to me. It is a privilege. Story 37. When a man does things right, it is not noticed, but when he does wrong, it is remembered. Ask any man how often his wife or girlfriend tells him he is appreciated unexpectedly. It hits hard when we hear it because it is rare. When we express frustrations with work or life, we get laughed at and not taken seriously, which adds another frustration to the wife or girlfriend. So we say nothing because we genuinely do not want to add to our partner's mental load. Story 38. Mental load, as I have seen described, seems to be just the basic mental requirements of independent living. I can certainly see how the division of labor could become unbalanced without proper communication when cohabitating. But quite frankly, it is also much less work these days than it was in our parents' or grandparents' days. My partner works longer hours in a much harder job than I do, so many of the traditional homemaker responsibilities fall to me by mutual agreement. Once a week, we sit down for 10 to 30 minutes to plan our meals for the rest of the week. I let her know what we need to buy for each meal. She orders it all from our supermarket through her phone, and I pick it all up the next day. We have a shared Google Calendar, as well as an erasable one on the fridge, so it is easy to keep track of plans. Most bills are on autopay, and we use a calendar to ensure the money is available. Keeping track of money is quite simple with all of the apps and spreadsheets available. She tends to dedicate more energy to that than I do, but she also has considerably more money coming in and going out than I do, so that seems fair to us, especially since I stay on top of my contributions. A related topic that often comes up with the mental load is emotional labor. While I can definitely see the mental load being unbalanced more along gender lines, especially when there are children involved, emotional labor, in my experience, is often slanted the other way. Listening to hours of recounting your partner's day, filled with anecdotes about people you don't really know, all while feigning interest, is emotional labor. Moderating your feelings around your partner because you know if you don't, you'll have to help moderate theirs is emotional labor. Listening to venting about the same problem repeatedly is emotional labor. Making sure your partner feels desired and appreciated is emotional labor. Planning dates and taking the lead in seduction, while not pushing or making your partner think you only care about sex, is emotional labor. Figuring out whether it is worth providing constructive criticism on your partner's actions or attitudes, and actually doing it, is emotional labor. Much of emotional labor is a necessary and reasonable part of being in a relationship or close to people. I have dealt with several instances of emotional labor in platonic and familial relationships. But like mental labor, it can easily become invisible and extremely unequal. One of the many reasons I love my partner is that she makes a concerted effort not to allow our mental or emotional labor to become unbalanced. Far more so than any other woman I have spent significant time with in a non-professional capacity. In summary, make sure you are not offloading too much of your own emotional regulation onto your partner's plate. Story 39. I have never understood women talking about their mental load. I just nod my head and try to act supportive, but it is an alien concept to me. If there are many chores, tasks, and errands that need doing, I usually just do them at some point. If I am worried I will forget something, I write it down. Otherwise, there is no mental exhaustion from having to think about these things. Taking 10 minutes to load the dishwasher is, for me, a very zen experience. I can let my mind drift and wander while I work. I am not unfamiliar with mental exhaustion. My energy runs down from being in unpleasant social settings for a long time or dealing with cognitively difficult tasks. But paying bills, checking the mail, replacing filters, or sharpening kitchen knives does not feel mentally taxing. It is baffling to me that women find it so. Story 40. I will do my best to keep this as an open discussion. Mental load is definitely a real issue. I do think it varies from relationship to relationship, making it difficult to say what it is or who is carrying more. From my understanding, it stems from a lack of communication, tools, and habits. It can even be self-imposed by taking on responsibilities that people might not need to handle or by putting more thought and effort into tasks unnecessarily. For example, a partner who believes they always have to be the one to remember appointments. Why? It might require effort to build the habit of both partners using a shared calendar, but that could be a solution. Or perhaps there are some tasks that one partner thinks absolutely need to be done, but in reality do not impact the outcome as much. For instance, one partner might think every meal must be home-cooked with a main dish and two sides, while everyone else might be content with a quick meal featuring a simple main dish with or without a single side. Story 41. I think with men the mental load has just been what is necessary in life and figuring out how to deal with it, and that has always been there. I feel like the topic, as presented in the context of women, has been framed as I have this load and I expect my spouse to relieve me of this burden, whereas men or husbands expect no one to relieve them of anything but instead pile more on. Here is another bill. Here is another responsibility. Here is another thing a family member is upset about that I need to solve. Here is another threat to my livelihood at work in the form of layoff rumors. Regarding the social trend, I do not think the loudest voices on the topic have been helpful at all. Instead, they have acted as a source of scorekeeping. Some of the louder voices are not asking for appreciation for what stay-at-home mothers do, but rather a 50-50 proposition that is actually very lopsided in her favor. Story 42. Discussions about mental load largely come from a toxic social media trend that turns into an echo chamber. The woman's sphere is just as toxic as the man's sphere. It is just socially acceptable to criticize men. The goal is division, and algorithms are very good at that. Relationships are hard and require communication. It is very easy to sit down and talk to your spouse to divide up the labor in a way that is fair for your household. When you do, you let your spouse handle the chore their way. Story 43. A lot of it comes from having to be my wife's amateur therapist often. I do it because it makes her happy for me to do my best to help her. And I love her, but it is not easy. Story 44. It's probably mostly a social media trend that women like to join because it makes them feel like they are doing a lot and also kind of a victim. On the other hand, I have noticed that women more than men tend to worry about things. Maybe they do not like doing it, but they do it nonetheless. If you constantly think about things, it can feel like a huge mental load when it really does not have to be. I live alone and take care of the house on my own. If you believe those videos, then I should be struggling with a mental load of doing everything in the house, but I am not. I just do whatever I need to do. Think about groceries, paying bills, cooking, meal planning, and so on. I do not obsess over it. I just do what I need to do. Story 45. You already know the answer to your question. You have written it from your perspective. Let me preface what I am about to say with this. I am speaking in general, broad terms. There are exceptions to everything I am about to state, both positive and negative. Generally, men are made very aware of the mental load of their partners, usually through emotional cues. The term happy wife equals happy life stems from this. The trouble comes when men cannot openly express or share their mental load because it is seen as competition for who endures the greatest misery in the marriage. Normal result. Men do not express it, the pressure increases, and then it erupts either in anger, apathy, or depression, each of which leads to a very disagreeable ending. The key is to recognize that each person in the relationship bears their own stresses, burdens, and fears or doubts. Then, understanding and acknowledging this, both partners find the path to mutual support. Try lightening each other's loads and at least openly acknowledge the weight carried by your partner with genuine empathy. Story 46. If you look through the various infidelity forums, you might notice how often a spouse or significant other ends up cheating simply because they felt ignored while their partner carried the load of trying to provide for their family. It is an all too common theme. You seem to be a rare exception. Commend you. Story 47. When I was married, my wife constantly complained about her mental load. She seemed overwhelmed with everything. Cooking, planning, birthday parties, school, and doctor appointments. Now that we are divorced, I am doing most of that, and it is really quite easy. Using lists and a calendar eliminates almost all the stress. I think it really comes down to mothers not feeling appreciated, and they use this language to ask for more appreciation, which is fair. Story 48. She ensures that her concerns are also my concerns, including my work, the house, maintenance, protection, and several other responsibilities. Story 49. Not a father, but in a leadership position in my professional life, and since gaining the responsibility to keep my team growing and employed, my mental load has skyrocketed. I have to think about what they are thinking, what upper management is thinking, and what can actually be done pretty much constantly to stay on top of things and lead responsibly. I imagine raising a child is that dialed up to 11, with it being someone's entire life rather than part of their livelihood. Before becoming a manager, I already felt this in some friend groups with individuals whose egos needed attention, but nobody told me that it was my responsibility. That kind of self-ownership is probably not best for mental health. Story 50. Thanks for asking. I would say both men and women carry a mental load. Women are allowed to be vocal about it, outwardly complain, and receive sympathy. If men are vocal, they are likely told to be strong and stop complaining. Women will say they have it worse, as seen in the responses on this thread. My mental load involves continuously worrying that my family will not be provided for unless I am there to provide. I have a moderately high income, but there is always a demand for more things. If something breaks in the household, I am expected to take care of it. For example, if a car breaks down, I am expected to give up my car and take time off from my job to get someone else's car fixed. Story 51. You at least have not given up yet. I got too tired of doing this years ago and stopped. Ironically, we have not had any kind of romance or sex since then. Now that I think about it, stopping the initiating has removed that burden from my mind, so I guess it is a win for me. Story 52. There was a thread on the fatherhood forum a while back that really nailed it for me. Story 53. This will sum it up perfectly in a 50-second YouTube short, and the way he delivers it is top quality. Story 54. I often feel like people cannot even imagine the mental load running through my head every day. Work, my house, my parents' house, my in-laws' house, my vehicles, their vehicles, the dogs, the kids, the millions of tasks I have been asked to help with by friends, family, and neighbors. The list keeps going. Story 55. The whole mental load discourse is a social media trend that serves as a shorthand for women to express that their partner is not contributing equally to maintaining the home and raising children. If you spend a lot of time on mental load content on social media, you are probably not communicating effectively with your partner about your needs and expectations for what needs to be accomplished around the house. Ideally, both partners share some mental load based on the way they have agreed to split the daily tasks and responsibilities all adults and parents must manage. These tasks will be different but complementary. Story 56. Without addressing your specific question, TikTok videos and Instagram reels that present nuanced opinions or perspectives do not receive many views. Information found online should be viewed with skepticism. Story 57. My mental load has me on a suicide watch list that I am too ashamed to reveal, let alone open up to my family and friends about, because both society and personal experience have taught me that saying anything makes everything worse. Never mind the fact that bottling up these feelings has also ruined every relationship I have ever been in. It is a lose-lose situation that I am not alone in. But sure, let us start another trend of social media influencers preaching about how everything should just be perfectly made for them. Story 58. I've never had a mental load. You just wake up and do whatever you need to do. It doesn't weigh me down. I never saw my role as a weight. It's just life. Story 59. I am saying this as someone who has been happily married for decades, but many times just having a wife is a mental load by itself. Story 60. Yes, we endure a significant mental and labor load when we have a woman in our lives. Men are cautious about commitment because it costs them. Women cost men greatly. The only reason men do not complain is because, unlike men, women do not care about our feelings or well-being. Women complain because complaining is effective. Women take male labor and express dissatisfaction. Men do not complain because they know women care only about themselves. Our complaints would be ignored. Instead, men often stop dating, which is common among many men at this point. Story 61. It's all part of the same social media narrative feminists love so much. We're the good, hardworking victims. No, if you're going on social media to make these kinds of videos, you're a people-pleasing fool, and that oppressed ideology enables it. You feel your spouse is not doing enough, is not seeing you, or you're not getting your due for your contributions. Okay. Communicate. If he doesn't change, either accept the situation or leave the relationship. These are the only real options, and this strange parasocial self-pity is not one. Story 62. It is quite high at times. Being back in school pursuing a totally different career path adds homework and a very different dimension to the mental load as well. I have taken to making a to-do list of the smaller and bigger things I notice and want to do around the house, just so she can see it. Otherwise, she does not notice those things and does not know they need to be done. I also do all the cooking and 90% of picking up and bringing the child to kindergarten, 90% of shopping, all house and car maintenance, both big and small tasks. Additionally, I remember to wash the washing machine itself, clean drains, handle economy and budgeting, and still do over 50% of everyday housework. Story 63. A good family man has a full load. It is not rare. I think most of these posts, videos, and similar content show blatant hypocrisy. They want their mental load to be acknowledged but refuse to recognize that he has one as well. They want to feel like the martyr or the most virtuous hero. In reality, most have it comparatively easier. Being a stay-at-home parent is not a cakewalk. I have done it. I would rather do my current job than that. However, this is the only job I have had that was easier and less stressful than being a stay-at-home parent. So picture this: you have your mental load that we do not see, and we have the mental load that you do not see. Traditionally, we do not receive much support from you with ours, but you pass half of yours onto us in the form of deadlines, goals, plans, and expenses. Being the breadwinner, we are dependent upon to enable you to manage yours. That is mental load in addition to whatever we deal with at work and outside your responsibilities at home, such as yard work, home maintenance, and vehicle maintenance. Story 64. Everyone has things on their mind. This is not exclusive to women. How self-centered does one have to be to believe men have no care in the world? Story 65. A lot of the man's mental load is involved with work. We do not just show up and do what the supervisor tells us. We have to constantly look for tasks we are supposed to be taking care of. Story 66. My problem with a mental load is that it is mental. Communicate, write it down. I like to see what needs to be done and tick off a list, especially for things my significant other has seen, but I am not aware of. Keeping it to yourself and not sharing, hoping I will notice, is frustrating for both parties involved. Story 67. Not really familiar with what a mental load is, but my mental state is a mess. Stress, depression, anxiety, anger, and grief. I think about suicide every day. Story 68. Stop listening to anti-man rage bait that tries to portray you as a victim and men as the enemy. This division between men and women prevents reasonable discussions about life experiences by provoking anger. Everyone has mental load. If men did not, there would be no charities raising awareness for men's mental health issues. 500,000 men a year end their lives, and men are more likely to use substance abuse to cope with their mental health struggles. Clearly, a lot goes on in men's minds. It is amazing that women can work now, but consider the 1800s. Men used to work in mine shafts for long hours without health and safety regulations, when mental health was largely unrecognized, all for little pay, just to feed their families. Some men worked themselves to death or returned home with diseases like tuberculosis. Imagine the mental load they carried. Although we have improved, many men still work long hours to support themselves and their families, while the cost of living has risen drastically. Anyone who thinks men in this position do not have significant mental load is delusional. Life is difficult for both men and women. This is not to deny that women have mental loads, but you are listening to a part of the internet that is anti-male and seeks to manipulate women into believing men have no issues. Your lived experiences prove this is false. Similarly, the red pill movement tries to suggest women have no issues with their anti-woman rhetoric. Story 69. I'm told that is rare, but I'm not sure it is. So what do the men say? You pretty much nailed it. We all have some sort of mental load throughout the day. I am pretty sure it is no more or less than it is for women. We all have things on our minds. I wonder if this idea about men comes from all the posters who like to talk about thinking nothing. It sounds like many people have taken this literally as nothing instead of nothing important. Story 70. There is some mental load that is typical for men. It is a bit different in character, as it is usually one long project rather than many small repeatable tasks. Usually, it involves building something new or fixing a broken item. What takes a lot of time is assessing the problem, deciding whether it is better to do it yourself or hire a contractor, and figuring out which tasks you need to do yourself. Also, you may not be an expert on the problem, so you will need some time to understand how it works. A few examples of tasks that take more time than expected. Hanging shelves and similar items on the walls. You need different drill bits, types of anchors, and screws of various sizes. It is important to assess where you will hang what and what type of fixture you need. If your washing machine breaks, you search forums and videos to determine if it is something you can fix yourself for $10 or if you need to hire a professional for $150. Buying an appliance like a lawnmower requires decisions. Manual or electric? What battery capacity? What height settings? Bosch, Makita, Black & Decker, or a no-name brand from an online store? You may spend 2 to 3 hours researching the best option. Story 71. This is a completely foreign concept to me. Gay couple here. When something needs to be done, one of us will do it. Usually, it's automatic because we see something that needs to be done and just do it. If I'm already occupied with a task, I'll ask him to take care of something that I've noticed. For example, if I'm busy cooking but the bin is full, I'll ask him to take the rubbish out. No problems. Sometimes jobs fall more in my court and others in his. I'm a decent cook, so I do all the cooking and grocery shopping. He takes care of all the pet-related chores as he has fixed work hours, whereas I'm a shift worker, and cats prefer a routine over chaos. If I'm sick or have had a particularly bad day, he will rise to the occasion and vice versa. It's a partnership and it's not hard. Am I missing something? Maybe we both got lucky that we have similar expectations for our home and both have the discipline to do stuff when it is due. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.